Some of the other things, and this is specifically, I think, for the international students where things here are somewhat different. It's my experience that in the US, it's perfectly fine to make mistakes. Nobody holds it against you. In some other societies, you make one mistake, you're dead. The rest of your future promotions are cut off. But where people come down hard about it here is that you lie about it. You make a mistake, the assumption is that if you make a mistake, you will learn from it. And I have people from other countries who frequently come and say, how come these venture capitalists are funding this guy who's failed in two other companies, two other startups, right? The assumption is you've learned your mistakes the third time around, the probability of success is higher. This is what Clinton got into trouble for. Right? With the Monica Lewinsky scandal, the so-called obstruction of justice is what he was tried for. And obstruction of justice in this case meant you are lying to us. The rest was his personal matter, right? People may not like it, but there's nothing they can do about it. Okay. So that concept of it's fine to make mistakes, own up to the mistakes, make sure you learn from it, is I think one of the things that makes this society so great. That there is always a second chance, a third chance, and that if you are really learning, so mistakes is part of the learning process. And in that process, we expect that you become a better person. The other thing that I think I've seen in most other countries, a concept that doesn't exist, is what's called conflict of interest. Like, we will not let Dr. Broke hire his daughter as his assistant. What's wrong with it, right? I'm sorry, I keep bringing your name up. I know you'll tolerate me, so because there's a conflict of interest there. You will not be able to manage your own nephew or niece or brother objectively as you would somebody else. And this is a much larger topic. So I can't be running a company and have a second company and giving contracts to that company. In many other countries, that happens. Okay, happens all the time. I come from Malaysia, happens all the time, right? And they don't see why that there's something wrong with it, because now I'm no longer giving that contract to a company that can deliver the best product. There's a conflict. If I'm owning another company, by giving that contract, I get a certain percentage of that profit back, and here we call it kickbacks, corruption, bribery, and so forth. Okay. And then in Silicon Valley, it's perfectly fine to have crazy ideas. Think outside of your field. A lot of people I know in the Valley in tech jobs are not from the tech background. It doesn't hold you back. Just because you have a tech background, it may, again, make it easier for you to get a job to begin with, but it's not a barrier to having ideas. You can be from the humanities, social sciences. Your discipline is not a barrier to your creativity. Okay, so think broadly and don't, some people may think it was crazy, but I know back in the 80s when I think Steve Jobs said that one day every home will have a personal computer, people thought he was crazy too. Okay. But don't oversell yourself. And then I want to talk a little bit about networking. Just knowing people is not networking. Because if you don't have the qualities that are necessary to make you successful, if you're just a bullshitter, people also know you for that. So I see some people going for meetings, going around giving out their business cards. That in itself is not networking. When you're talking of a network, you should be focused on what we call a quality network. A network of individuals who know you for what you are, who know your capabilities, who know your weaknesses. These are the people who can connect you to appropriate sources. Explore things you've not done before. This is how you grow. Go to restaurants you've not been before. Don't always go to the same ethnic restaurant that I have friends who say, oh yeah, I eat everything. Where do you want to go? Oh, I know that Indian restaurant. I say, okay, I've heard that. We'll go somewhere else. I've lived in 4 different countries and I see the same thing. All the foreigners get together. and they talk about how bad things are and how the local culture is nothing much. It doesn't work that way. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly in every society. But what you are here, what you need to do, and granted, many things are different here than elsewhere, and I've touched upon some of the things. And most of these things have a logic and a thought process behind them. I recommend very strongly that you try and understand that first, and you may incorporate it into your own personal, ethical, moral systems, values, with modifications. But don't just dismiss it saying, oh yeah, that doesn't matter. And San Jose is really an excellent location for preparing to become a global citizen. I've lived here now for 30 years, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. Um, I think there's a immigration panel, but what I do want to say is the last bullet item: do not listen to street talk, please. Street talk is always corrupted. I've known students get into real trouble. They'll come back and say, my friend said that. There's a lot. It's a complex issue. Don't get into trouble. I think it used to be called IPS. They keep changing acronyms. But they are the best people. They're outstanding. Thank you very much for listening.